Hello and welcome to my long video about faux oak beam makers, and it's faux, not fox. Okay, what beam? So this is a simple, well, it's not simple, it's a long video that breaks down the type of beams we do, and this is mainly aimed at people that are making inquiries. I can just send them the links to these. I know it's not professional AI generated, it's just me and a pen and a paper. It's me and a faux beam maker's pen. You get one of these when I come and see you. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Nice and simple, I think. Any questions, please give us a shout. So this is a quick video about the beams. You can style of beams, the type of beams. I'm doing it this way to try and make it as simple as possible. People start researching beams online, come up with all these phrases that they don't really know what it means. So these are a few indicators for you. So a cover beam, basically, that is something that's going over an existing box. So imagine this is a doorway, so the wall comes along like that. There's the ceiling, then you've got a great big hole in the wall, and then there, this is perhaps going through to a different room. It might be a bifold door, it might be an extension you've had built. So there you have a steel, an RSJ, big I-beam that's inside the wall. It can either be a brand new one that you then get boxed in by your builders, but when we end up with a box, okay, so it could be above a patio, it could be across a room divider or an extension or something like that. Anything where there's an existing structure, okay, that's a cover beam. We're going to cover that, okay. The RSJ needs boxing in, usually with pink plasterboard, because that covers you for the building regulations. So a cover beam is covering an existing box. Now that is where we use that existing box, okay. We use that box and then we apply the beam effect to that structure. Okay, so you're not making it any thicker. We can, if that's your gap, we can go overlap the gap. This is your doorway, for example. To make it look original, we can overlap a little bit like this. So when you're measuring, trying to add a, we do anyway, but add sort of 6-8 inches on each side on there, and then that's a cover beam. So it could be an RSJ, could be an existing box that's been there painted for 25 years. That doesn't make any difference. It's still a cover beam. Okay, that's going to be cheaper simply because we are creating it onto your existing box. So the next type of beam is a free hanging beam. Okay, now I've had to think of a name, because what do you call them otherwise? So a free hanging beam is where you've got a completely empty ceiling, a completely empty wall, whatever you want the beam to be. That free hanging beam is then created out of our high density 500 grade fireproof EPS, which is short for expanded polystyrene, and we make those to any length you like, so we can always join them together. Free hanging beam means we're actually going to fix that through with foam adhesive and long screws into your ceiling, and it is not like a PU beam, which we'll come to next. A PU beam is one that's pre-molded, so they get one mold and they make your 5 beams out of that one mold, so everything looks the same. These are all unique. They come in 2.4 meter lengths, and we can then expand that. We fit these for you and we finish them off afterwards, so there's no spaces, no gaps showing. You don't have to buy that silly rubber stuff that looks like metal to cover the joints. There's no joints. Okay, so it's a solid piece of fireproof EPS high density polystyrene. It's quite hard, still reasonably light, and we fix that to the ceiling. So if you wanted a room with 4 or 5 beams across it, or even just one, that's what a free hanging beam is. Simple enough, free hanging. It just means we're not going to hang it from the ceiling. It just means it gets fixed to the ceiling. So free hanging beams, any length, any size. We do need to know the length of the room that you're looking for. We also need to know the width, which is that way. We need to know the thickness, which is that way. Obviously, we make these off-site. We then fit them to the ceiling and do the beam effect onto them once they're fitted to the ceiling. So if I ask you, is it cover or free hanging, you now know which the difference is. Now, let's just jump ahead a little bit. I'm going to stop this video, start again. Often on Instagram, you'll hear the phrase poo beams, poo beams. That's because the Chinese manufacturers of polyurethane beams, their AI system doesn't recognise the word faux. They often call it fox, and they don't recognise the phrase PU, so it comes out as poo. But what they mean is polyurethane. Polyurethane is the outer casing. Now, what they do is they get a piece of tree, a piece of plank, and then they actually make a mould of the pattern. So all the pattern, the bottom and the side is all the same. So if you're buying 4 beams, they're all the same beam. So copy, copy, copy. They then put, a bit like fiberglass, if you've ever seen fiberglass being done, they create a little fine 2 or 3 millimetre or 2 millimetre thick polyurethane beam, and then they line that with expanding polystyrene, a hard polystyrene, by putting a block in. So they put like a block in there, block of probably plastic, I would have thought, and then they fill the edges round with this expanding foam, and then they whip the block out. So you end up with a U shape. A lot of people think that this is the only way to fit a beam. It's not, because what you have to do with those is you have to get little bits of blocks of timber, and then you've got to line those down your room. If that's your room like that, you're going to have to line those little blocks down the room, and then the beam fits over the top of that. Now, one of the issues with these, if you're looking to cover an RSJ, is the thickness, because the bigger the beam is, the bigger the profile is, the bigger the width is, then the thicker it is here. So that makes your RSJ even bigger than it already is, which is okay if that's what you want. But when you come to those situations where that's the ceiling, we've got a hole in the wall, and we want that beam there covering, it's much easier with a PU beam to finish it here, where the hole finishes, if you like. That's the hole. I'm trying to make it 3D. Yeah. Or you've got to start slicing pieces off, like here. Yeah. To make it go overlap. Okay, so that's a PU beam. If you're putting a PU beam on a ceiling, if this wonderful pamphlet has got, this little pad has got lovely straight lines on it. So there's a wonderfully straight ceiling. 99% of the ceilings I've ever come across are a bit like that. Maybe that's exaggerating, but they very rarely are completely 100% flat. So when you put your PU beam onto your little wooden blocks, like this, let's just use that line there. There's your PU beam. You've got your little wooden blocks bolted to or screwed to the rafters, because you've got to find the rafters to put this on. And then what happens is you end up with all these gaps. The beam starts to rock. You end up with gaps underneath, which then have all got to be backfilled. With our free hanging beams, they do bend to a degree, so we can actually make them fit a lot better into those. And we're going to plaster them once they're on the ceiling anyway, so that fills all those gaps automatically. So that's your PU beams, very much in set sizes. One of the issues at the moment is the specifications for building regs. Guys are putting in 2 beams instead of 1, or the actual RSJs are now, instead of being standard sort of 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, they are now putting either 2 in, or they are putting massive big 10-inch ones in. And I haven't seen any PU beams yet that are 10 inches wide. I saw a 9-inch one, but it was an old one from a few years ago. But yeah, so PU beams are fine if you want. Just doesn't matter about the repeat pattern. You want to fit them yourself. It's not as easy as it looks. And that's basically a PU beam. Not as cheap as they look. You know, again, you've got to pay for delivery. Often you've got to pay extra for fitting. Don't forget that Faux Oak Beam Makers, when I give you a price, it includes fitting as well. So yeah, that's a PU beam. And let's think of something else. Oh yes, homemade plank beams. Okay, this is the next version of having a faux beam. So I call it plank cladding. There's 2 ways of looking at this. Sometimes you've got a box, an existing box or an existing RSJ, and you then want to put planks on. Now, I do get a lot of inquiries that end up saying to me, for what I'm charging to do a unique bespoke beam, they can get planks of oak and then just pin them to this beam, whatever. So that's one version. So planking an existing beam sounds great until you start looking at the price of oak. So firstly, anything above 3 meters long, that's the length going that way, of course. Anything above 3.5 meters, you're going to have trouble finding planks that long. You've also got the same problem as the PU beams, where if your ceiling isn't, absolutely 100% flat, then when you're trying to mount that beam up to the ceiling, quite often there's gaps. It's not going to fit properly because it's not actually fitting into the ceiling. So then you've got options of whether you try and make it fit, try and gouge out the ceiling to make a bit of room for the plank to go in. That's just one of the things. The main thing is when you've got a 5 metre beam to cover and you're covering it in planks, you're going to get lots of spaces or lots of gaps. Also, I've found that modern oak, if you're buying brand new oak, it's not particularly cheap, but also it's very white. It's like completely white, and you've still got to stain it. You've still got to mess about with it. It's got very little character in it. The grains and the knots have almost gone. I mean, I think most of it's Chinese, to be honest. It's not even proper English oak. So yeah, oak planks is one thing of plank cladding, and then you've still got this problem here. Now, this problem is you've got to fix that on. Now, you can't be screwing that onto an RSJ very successfully because they're made out of steel, so that'd be a real job. And then you've got to fill all the holes in anyway. But also this corner, now if you don't do a 45 degree, you end up with the side and then the bottom. Okay, so again, there's not, in nature, what you're looking for is to make those two edges, those two sides, you've got to make them a part of the same beam. It's not a separate piece. So when you're trying to match that to that and that to that, then you've got issues. It just doesn't look right. And the main thing I think with these, anything like this, is that edge there then becomes lovely and square. It's got a lovely 90-degree corner on it. Yeah, so there and there, you've got this lovely 90-degree corner. You can hammer it and bash it a little bit, make it a little bit more rustic. But for me, when we do a free-hanging beam, we cut. The first thing we do is when we get the EPS cut into length and widths and sizes, we actually chop off a 45-degree, quite random-looking, slice off the edge, so that beam becomes more like a real beam. Now, I've said this over and over again with my customers when I go and see them. Two things I look at when I'm quoting for beams is what would that beam look like if it was real wood? The thing is, how would it fit into that room? Is the way we fix it to the application like it would be if it was real wood, a real oak beam, original? So again, that's another thing. And this most people want a rustic kind of finish to the beams to make them look original, not something that's brand new and very contemporary. So the other case is we see people online, a lot of Instagram posts at the moment, where they get foam board, they get little thin sort of 10, 12 mil thick planks of foam, and then they make up this 3-piece there. You've got to put little blocks in to make it, reinforce it. You've still got to put the blocks onto the ceiling. You've still got the problem of the ceiling not being completely flat, and you've still got the problem of that 90-degree edge there being very sharp. So again, plank cladding sounds great. I've had, I think, 3 jobs since November of 25. I've had 3 jobs where people have tried to oak plank their existing boxes and beams. One guy had an RSJ and a free hanging beam he wanted to make out of oak planks, and he only got the 3 pieces of sample oak and gave up on it. We ended up putting 32 beams in that room. So yeah, it becomes a nonsense when people say I can do it cheaper in timber. Obviously, the other thing people say online quite a lot is, why not use a real oak beam? So that's great. Again, you've got issues if it's over a certain length. I've done beams recently. Well, I've actually got 2 to do in June this year, which are 16 meters long. Now, you wouldn't be able to find a piece of oak 16 meters long. And again, that guy did exactly the same thing. He got somebody in to actually start to put planks on them, and he chucked them off site on the first day because it just wasn't working, didn't look right. So yeah, planks thing. That's it basically for that bit. So there's only one option left, and we'll just go through that very quickly. Ye old oak. That's something that I call a reverb. Sorry, just being daft. Yeah, so this is the final bit for this bit. Sorry, scared you to death doing that. Yeah, so old oak. So quite a lot these days we get 2 questions. One is, I want to sandblast my beams. Is that something you do? Well, no, we don't do sandblasting. Nothing wrong with sandblasting at all. There's some very, very good companies out there that just concentrate on sandblasting woodworking houses and things like that. It is messy. There's a lot of masking up to do, a lot of sheeting up. One lady that had a front room sandblasted said it took her 12 to 18 months to stop finding sand. But yeah, so nothing wrong with it. You'd still have to stain your beams and wax them or whatever you're going to do afterwards. And it's not that we get asked for. I've got one now coming up, so it's black oak beams all around the house, and they've had RSJ put in. They've had one of the beams sandblasted before. An old beam sandblasted put in across the extension, so it's an original beam. So, but the rest are black. So what we're going to do with those is we're going to prime them with this acrylic primer I have made, and then we stain it again to look like oak. So we're going to try and make them all match. And the worst case scenario is I have to base coat the actual new beam as well, just to make the stains all work together. So again, we're going back to that theme of it's not the same tree, so they're not all matching, but we want to get roughly the same, the same look on them, the same finish. So yeah, so that's a refurb. Another application for refurbs is where we've got an existing beam in, let's say, the old part of the house. It could be a bit tatty, it could be beyond sandblasting because it's full of cracks, or it maybe have steel bolts running through it, or repairs and things like that. And then you have an extension built, and they have an RSJ2 put in. So now we've got an original beam, and we've got two either free hanging or cover beams to sort out. So what happens is then we try to make all three match together. I did one in Plymouth that was two beams, both painted black over 100, 200, 300 years, and one was bigger than the other. So we made the smaller one bigger to match the other one, and then we refurb both of them. So yeah, so the refurb is just a simple case of using your existing beams. It's a very quick job. We do the priming one day, we do the stain and the graining the next day, usually on an average, sometimes on the same day, depending on how many there are. But you've seen these pictures, all these pictures are online anyway. And that just means you're not sandblasting. It's very, very quick. Other than covering the furniture and the floors up, there's no mess. And it's just an option. So basically we make them look like they have been sandblasted, which is the main thing. So yeah, refurb's quite regular these days now. Either a simple, can you make these not black anymore? Or we're matching something else, and we're trying to repair an old beam that's beyond sandblasting. In a lot of cases, people have had the nitromors out and the jelly spits, the jelly stripping type things. They've tried to do it with a wire brush or sandpaper, so you end up with a bit of a mess on the beam. And again, we don't turn these jobs down. We're more than capable of sorting it out for you. So that's it really. Just remember the new school.com, SKOOL, school.com. We're trying to sort this training course out for people that are looking to start up a business or do their own beams. So it's school.com/faux oak beam makers. And then we've got the new website, fauxoakbeammakers.uk, and all over the social medias under that name. And please WhatsApp me. I can do most quotes 90% of the time. We can do over WhatsApp just by taking photographs, measuring in metric, please, if you can. So I need a length, wall to wall. I need a width, how wide is that beam and how thick is that beam that you want, and basically a postcode. The amount of people that don't give me the postcode, it's incredible. I am not going to come knocking at your door. I live between Bury and Blackburn in Lancashire, and in the last 3 weeks I've been to South Wales, I've been to Plymouth, I've been to Southampton, I've been to Weymouth in Dorset, up in Leeds. I've got another job in Bradford to go and see. So I haven't got time to go knocking on people's doors just because they gave me a postcode. So please just let me know who you are, where you are, and what you want. It's that simple. Cover beam, free hanging beam, refurb beam. Have a great day.